But those who named the bunker-busting missile penetrator probably understood all the suggestive associations that this name would evoke. Overall, it is a remarkably good missile system, and it should have possessed quite decent or even exceptionally high targeting capabilities and precision. Nevertheless, the Americans who wanted to finally deal with global terrorism unfortunately missed their target with their penetrators by as much as 2,500 kilometers, pounding the bunker in Fordo instead of the one in Novogoryovo. Nevertheless, even though this unfortunate miss occurred, America, as an active participant in this nightmare, is a very interesting character that will undoubtedly add both explosive acts and plot twists to this circus program of the future, which is most likely an inevitable apocalypse. In short, yes, they really did bomb Iranian nuclear facilities. I don't know whether it was by mistake, a miss, or perhaps on purpose. Bombing nuclear facilities is becoming a part of life, and soon it will generally become one of the standard ways of settling international relations, just as familiar, really, as embassy cocktails or presentations. Everyone will get used to this very quickly, and probably in just a year, people will stop making a drama or an event out of it. As recent years have clearly and unequivocally shown, absolutely anything and everything can indeed become a deeply ingrained habit. No one is particularly surprised anymore by the sight of excess Botox being drained from the cheeks of the diminutive little guy who leads Russia. But in general, this bombing of Fordo, Natanz, Isfahanit's very interesting overture to a great nightmare, the fate of the enriched uranium. Whether it was taken out of there or notice, 125th concern. The point is absolutely not about this uranium. The strikes with bunker busting bombs with that playful name penetrator still hit the Kremlin harder than Iran, despite missing their target. In full view of the entire world, Russia's friend, ally, and loyal supplier Iran was demonstratively humiliated and, pardon the expression, penetrated in its most intimate and sacred place, and penetrated right through its thick concrete underwear at that. The Russian Federation trembled because this nuclear sanctuary, Fordo, was created with the direct involvement of the Russian world. It was considered absolutely invulnerable. Just like, by the way, Putin's deep underground bunkers, which were designed and built by the same people. The Americans, with a truly terrifying nonchalance, took control of this extensive underground concrete system. They cracked it open. They cracked open the bunkers, well, about as easily as opening a can of Coke. And 7 bombers flew over Iran without any interference, without the slightest incident. They weren't bothered by Iran's Air Force. And by the way, Iran actually has quite a few aircraft. Nor were they troubled by the air defense system. But afterwards, of course, the United States of America made a mocking gesture, clearly telling the nation of Iran that they truly did not mean any harm whatsoever. Well, yes, but this smack in the face with a shovel, well, it's just a new kind of rhinoplasty that's supposed to make Persian soil even more beautiful. And the Russian world, yes, the Russian world is bleeding and puffing, unable to find any words except for very cautious, cowardly officially. Over at the UN, of course, Nebenzia's kettle started boiling. Masha Zakharova, too, she managed to overcome her spiff hangover. And she also somehow awkwardly and timidly condemned it. But absolutely all of the Russian Federation's objections were not just ignored, they simply went unnoticed. And Russia was once again told that it is a nobody, that it has no name, and that it would be better off not meddling in grown-up game. In general, this whole penetration episode was taken dramatically only in Iran itself, and to some extent in Russia. The vice president of the United States, Mr. Vance, even expressed confidence that the bombing would only improve relations between the US and Iran, and that it was actually a beneficial procedure. The states wanted to prove that they spared no expense, that nothing is too much for their friends, especially considering the hefty cost of the penetrators they dropped, and that this scrubbing of the most underground of factories is simply a way to improve relations, a form of mutual assistance and partnership in a very real, energetic way. I repeat, there are absolutely no guarantees that the stockpiles of enriched uranium were actually removedo, that they weren't. There are no guarantees at all. Here, American intelligence honestly shrugs its shoulders and doesn't make things up. But Russia, of course, did not abandon its own and set out to comfort Iran. And the Russian Hockey Federation signed a memorandum of cooperation with the Iranian Hockey Association. That was the only way Russia could wipe away the Ayatollah's tears. And as for the one who was, so to speak, the organizer of the preliminary caresses, Netanyahu, the one who handled the foreplay before the penetration, hastily announced that the world's most dangerous regime had been deprived of the world's most dangerous weapon. And here, of course, Netanyahu exaggerated again. They tried to disarm a regime that is far from the most dangerous. When it comes time to disarm the truly dangerous one, that will be quite the quest. After all the world's dictatorial, dark, bloody, and treacherous regime soul, the evil have a terrifying source that nourishes them, living under ruby stars. It is this very source that gives rise to and sustains all the world's terror, all dictatorships, and all the world's evil. Today, this source is sorrowful because Iran was a very important Kremlin tentacle. And now that tentacle has been wounded. It's clear to everyone that many issues could be resolved if a missile were to finally land where it truly belongs. But honestly, trying to find logic in politicians' actions these days is like, I don't know, drilling into the moon, hoping to find a Coca-Cola deposit there. Of course, if the penetrators had landed not in Fordo, but in Novo Ogariovo, then by now the old Ayatollah himself would have personally driven up to the gates of the White House in his creaky car, bringing tons of enriched uranium blueprints for atomic bombs, and would be profusely apologizing. But nevertheless, what happened. Putin, with his war and his pathology, has legitimized and unleashed evil. Evil had been waiting for this for a long time. And the power of this evil, its capabilities, due to evolutionary reasons, are practically unlimited. The creature in general, the human beings, 100% a biological creature, in other words, an absolute animal. And millions of years of bloodshed, cannibalism, scavenging, and promiscuity have instilled in this animal over the course of its evolution, absolutely terrifying skill. But there was no other way. Survival in those inhumane times was impossible otherwise. Conditioned reflexes and sociocultural training in general have put some makeup on the Pithecanthropus face of Homo, but they couldn't change its fundamental features. The fabrications of religions also failed to improve the situation or to better the creature called Homo. In fact, love for one's neighbor has never stopped anyone from building a concentration camp for that very neighbor.